Hello guys and welcome for another Eternum video. We made two videos about the new perks and changes to the armor pieces and the jewelries, and of course it's logical to expect a third one which will be covering the weapons. Last time I also didn't share this spreadsheet that you see right now with you guys, but for those of you who are asking for it and wondering about it, now it is available to everyone, so it will be mentioned in the description of the video and you can have access to it and see all the perks necessary. Now, without wasting too much of your time, let's move forward and go and check the first perks. But one last thing to mention is that we had a really nice comment in one of the videos that the mid-sale Luxembourg designers outlet ads are popping non-stop, for which I really have to say sorry, but unfortunately I don't have an ad blocker, so really sorry to spam you guys with those ads, but it is what it is. So help me out here, tell me what we should do about it, and maybe we can get an ad blocker for the next time. Jokes aside, let's begin. First perk today we're gonna talk about is End. This, in my opinion, is the best perk when it comes to the new badge of perks that we received, simply because it's applicable to almost all the melee weapons, and it has an increased damage on both spectrums, meaning both for the abilities and the basic attacks. Personally, I think that this perk is an amazing choice for a lot of weapons, mainly for those who are utilizing a lot of abilities, but also for those who have short, light attack chains, such as the Great Sword and the Spear. Of course, those two weapons have a light attack chain of only 2 basic attacks, which means that every second hit will be gaining those 12% base damage increase. And for the weapons which are using, of course, a lot of abilities, like the Rapier Bleed skill for example, this would mean 6% ability damage increase throughout all of the spells that we are using on the Rapier. The next one that we have in line is the Mortal Aggression. This is basically a perk that is also applicable on, of course, armor pieces, and I didn't really mention it last time, but I thought that this time I will speak about it a little bit. The reason that I didn't add it on the previous video is because I personally don't think it has a slot compared to all the other perks. It's really nice that we see the changes to the mortal perks in general, because we had before Mortal Empowerment, Mortal Lifesteal, Mortal Refreshment, and so on, which were all separate perks, and it would mean that you need to spend 5 or even more slots for them. But now they are all together in one single perk called Mortal Aggression. But still, I don't think that this perk is useful, and the reason that I don't think it's useful is still the same as before. It's because it's on kill and it's not on assist. As we can see here, it says hits will grant you 2% lifesteal, and then you would gain 10% of your max health, 10 stamina, fortify and empower for 8 seconds, but on kill. So if we don't make the finishing blow, if we don't make the last hit, and let's say we did 95% of the HP of the enemy, we managed to bring him down to 1 HP, and then someone else steals your kill, you would not benefit anything. So I think that this must be reworked in a way that it's also working on assist. Therefore, it would be a completely different story. And then, of course, quite a lot of people might decide to run it. But up until then, unless you are running some crazy build that you are killing people left and right without any issues, I really don't see where this perk can replace anything else that we have so far. And then going to the next one, we have another entry, but this time it's a little bit on the weak side in my opinion. And this is the Critical Suppression. This one would give you the following bonus: hitting a target with a magical weapon, light or a heavy attack will reduce their critical chance by 2.5% for 3 seconds, and it will stack up to 4 times. Now guys, this might sound really nice, but in practice basically it's just a really bad perk. The reason why it's a bad perk is because first, when you hit with light and heavy attacks your enemies, and this only lasts for 3 seconds, meaning that you have to hit every 3 seconds a person, you would not have that much of a chance to hit someone that many times, like that often. Those guys are able to dodge, able to block, And of course, they can also get out of your vision unless you are playing with a Void Blade and you are using the, the melee attacks. Then it's a different story. But I still don't understand what is the purpose of this perk. Stacking four times 2.5% of critical chance is equal to 10% critical chance. This means that if a target hits you once and he doesn't crit, his next hit will be doubled by his base critical chance. I don't know if you know how critical works, but if you want, I can make a separate video and I will explain basically how it stacks and how it adds up and so on. But to summarize it really simple, this perk is not good. Like, just avoid it. It's definitely better to just run anything else, but not this one. Even I would prefer to run Mortal Aggression over this one, believe me. Like, this would be a completely useless perk for you and you would not get any benefit for it, so avoid it. The next one is Resurgence. This I'm not entirely sure because I'm not a healer main, but I think I remember something extremely similar to this in the passives from the Lifestaff skill tree. There is a passive that gives you more healing buffs when you have some stacks, and I think that they were made on kills. But this one, basically, kills and group kills will grant you stacks of Blessing, increasing outgoing healing by 1% per stack for 20 seconds. Personal kills will grant you 2 stacks, and group AI kills will grant you 1 stack, maximum of 15 stacks. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I mean kills or assists, because here we can see that it's not only on kills, but also as group kills. And in this case, if you are playing, let's say, as a healer, and you have some killers in your group that are, killing other players, especially for wars, a lot of healers are having in their groups a DPS, like a quad DPS that is, of course, doing a lot of damage. If they are able to get those stacks for you and to increase your healing potential, that could be something really nice, especially, if you are healing the front line, if you are healing the bruisers, and so on. Maybe it would be also useful in dungeons, because we can see that group AI kills are also granting you a stack. But I would probably say that we need them for dungeons with a lot of mobs, for example, like depths or something like that. But yeah, I would really want to hear you guys. What do you think about it? Maybe someone who is a healer and he knows his craft, maybe he can share with us a little bit more knowledge. But basically, those are the 4 new perks. I believe that I'm not missing something. But if I do, please let me know, because I'm just following my list. I'm completely avoiding the shield perks because I don't think that there is something new there. And I'm also quite clueless about shields. I'm just not the biggest fan of shields. So that's why I will go to the next section and I want to explain a couple of things which for me was quite shocking, but maybe for some people it could be something completely normal, or it could be a brand new thing to realize and to see it. So as from the beginning of season 10, we had a couple of changes when it comes to how bonuses, perks and charms and everything works, and everything so far is pretty interesting and extremely nice. I feel really refreshed because we have a lot of potential builds and there is no BIS. Currently I still believe that there is no such thing as BIS, because it really depends what you want to achieve, and you can definitely achieve it in a couple of different ways and not only one. But what I want to say is that this perk here, Plague Strikes, was exclusive only to melee weapons in the past, and it was due to the fact that if you place this on a ranged weapon, it becomes extremely hard to tackle it and it's really oppressive. Now, we had only once in the past of New World a case where we had an item which was a named fire staff. I believe it was when Tempest was released as a dungeon and as a whole MSQ. In Tempest there was a fire staff that was dropping with Plague Strikes, and this fire staff was bonkers. Like, a lot of people were crying. I believe that the whole community back then literally lost their minds over this fire staff, because this is illegal. Fire staffs, they are known by nature that they use a lot of heavy attacks, but it can be said the same for the bows. So if a ranged player is able to apply to you non-stop disease with their heavy attacks, it's really hard to tackle this, especially because they have the range advantage, right? But now in Season 10, it seems that nobody actually cares anymore, because this perk is now applicable to all the weapons. It doesn't really matter if it's a melee or a range. As you can see here, we have the fire staff, we have even life staff, we have bow. We don't have musket because musket is not applying heavy attacks. All of the shots from the musket are light attacks. But yeah, fire staff and bow, and this, I think it's a extremely good thing, of course, for the range players, because it can give them it can give them quite a lot of offense, and also the anti-healing effects from distance are pretty nice. But then if we go to the next one, which is the Alacritus Punishment, it's quite the opposite here, because this perk was a unique perk for all the magical weapons, meaning that you could slot it only on fire staff, on an ice gauntlet, on a life staff, and I'm not even sure if you could slot it on a void gauntlet because of the void blade. But what I'm trying to say here, and you can already probably see it, this perk is now applicable to all the weapons in the game. Now, why is this a problem? Alacritus Punishment, as you can see by the description, is PvP only perk, and it will give you 16% more damage to players with haste. Now, haste, if you don't know, is quite popular in the game. Everyone likes to run quick, everyone wants to chase people quicker, and of course to run away quicker. So by default, a lot of people are either having haste in their own skill trees or own builds, or they are receiving haste from their teammates in the form of different abilities. With other words, 90% or even more of the players are completely hasted, and by completely I mean even if you have 1% haste, this perk will be active. So 90+% of the players are all the time with haste. So this means that this perk is straight up damage boost almost non-stop. And why is that a bad thing? Well, like I said, before it was only for ranged players and it was kind of their unique thing. Now it's available to anyone. So if you believed before that sword and shield and hatchet or spear or a great axe in a light equip load was super strong and a really good assassin build, now imagine if they run also Alacritus Punishment, that will give them even more damage if you are hasted. So I think that this is really powerful move for the melee players. I'm not saying that they are getting more buffs than the ranged ones. I actually believe that the ranged are pretty strong this patch as well, but this is something to think about, guys, and definitely to look forward to, because indeed this perk is amazing for PvP, and I think that it should replace maybe something old in your sockets of your weapons, and definitely you should think about it. Now, the next perks that I want to speak about are definitely well known and of course maybe favorite ones from previous patches: Rogue and Penetrating Backstab. Of course, there is way more perks with the same or similar style nowadays, because we have the Enchanted, we have the Vicious, the Keen, and so on. So what is the common thing between those perks is that now they were transferred from the weapons down to everywhere we want. What I mean by this is, for example, a best spear, or one of the best spears in the past, was a spear that has Rogue, Penetrating Backstab, and let's say Attunement or so on. You know, the perks that are meant to be for damage. What we see as a change this patch is that a lot of those perks, like the Rogue and the Penetrating Backstab, are getting into those charm formations, and they can be stacked up to 5 times on your armor pieces or jewelries, or of course weapon if you want to. And this opens up so much more potential for a player to achieve higher damage. That is just insane. It's literally mind-blowing, because if you go now and you look at all those old perks, I mean, they are still in the game, but they are perks that were only slottable on your weapons. Now they are slottable on your armors. So you can have 5 Enchanted, for example. You can have 5 Skilled Enchantment, which is a new perk, but technically works the same way for skills. Then you have 5 Vicious potential, 5 Rogue potential, 5 Penetrating Backstab potential, and this creates so much. So much. It's just insane. And I think that what we have also as a change from the past is, or at least I was believing it, I was always slotting for my fire staff builds, but not only the weapon perks on my armors. And the reason for that was because I wanted my weapon, or at least the main hand weapon, to always have the maximum damage potential in the form of those perks. Now, however, with the change that we have those perks available to armor pieces or jewelry pieces, this means that we have extra slots on our weapon, the main hand weapon, to use the skill perks. For example, if I want to play an ice gauntlet, let's say with spike, and if I go with empowered spike, as I always like to give example with this one, if we have it on the ice gauntlet, our spike will deal 24% more damage to rooted targets and 16% more to slowed ones. This is if we, of course, slot it on the ice gauntlet. If I place this same perk on my gear, I will do 15% to rooted and 10 to slowed ones. So why would I put it on my armor pieces or jewelry pieces when I can have it on my ice gauntlet, and then for the damage of the ice gauntlet I can just use skilled enchantments or vicious all across my armor pieces. So I think that this also opens up another way of thinking and how we structure our build. So definitely we should have that in mind, especially with all the offensive perks that we now have in the form of charms. And another thing that I have to mention here is that, for example, Keenly Jacked and Keenly Empowered, as they are not stackable perks, of course, something that I believe it was mentioned in the previous videos. So if I go with Keenly Jacked and I open the perk, we can see here that it says condition for the perk to work, and it's mentioned equipped item. Now what this means is, for example, if I play a Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet and I have a Keenly Jacked on my Ice Gauntlet, every time I critically hit with the Fire Staff, the Keenly Jacked effect will be applied, because I have this perk in my Ice Gauntlet. Before that was never the case, and you had to have your weapon active in order to make the perks work. Now it's a different story. So if you have a secondary weapon which you use only for defensive purposes, I would definitely suggest you to think about which exact offensive or defensive or whichever charms you want to put on it, so you can have the maximum benefit for your other main weapon. And then we are going to the last section of this video, and this is of course the infixes. I didn't speak about any set bonuses or infixes so far, but here I really had to mention those two, because in my opinion the close quarters and also the critical storm are probably one of the best ones. Of course we have others which are related to different pieces of gear. At first, before the season was even out, I thought that all those infixes will be available for us to get as a drop on any kind of piece, like either that be an armor or a weapon, but it turns out that they are fixed for either specific slots or either specific type of weapons. So we will speak about only those two, and the close quarters, as probably everyone knows right now, is only applicable to the three physical damage type ranged weapons, which are the bow, the musket, and the blunderbuss. I was hoping that we can get this kind of a infix on our magical weapons as well, but probably AGS already saw the potential of Void Blade abusing it, because if it was available for magical weapons, it would have been available for Void Gauntlet, and then Void Blade would still utilize this, and then it would have been a complete disaster. So yeah, this is only available to bow, musket. It says also hatchet, because you technically have throwing hatchets. But I personally believe that only the blunderbuss is utilizing the maximum potential of it, because of course blunderbuss doesn't have the same range as a bow or a musket, and I'm really not sure which kind of a bow or a musket would want to play on 5 meters distance, but that's another topic. The next infix that I really hoped as well to see on the fire staff, and I even already had like a theory craft in my head about the potential usage of this infix, is due to the fact that critical storm once every half a second, when you critically hit a target, will give you a stack or a charge on yourself lasting for 13 seconds, and at 6 charges, hitting a target with an ability will consume all of the charges, and it will trigger a bolt of lightning, dealing additional 100% weapon damage. Now this sounds perfect, it's literally perfect for a fire staff, because you have a really decent chances to critically hit people. Then you also use quite often your abilities, and it was just like making a lot of sense. But unfortunately here under the description of the infix, we see that it's compatible with flail, sword, rapier, fire staff, life staff, and then later on we also see ice gauntlet. But if we go down and if we look at the different drops, I personally didn't see a single drop out in the world or any picture or anything that has anything different than, of course, spear, sword, and hatchet. So I think that only those three weapons for the moment can acquire this infix. It's a bit unfortunate, and I really hope that they would maybe change that. Maybe in the future we can see other weapons which are mentioned here in this list to also be able to utilize this infix, because I really believe it's a nice one, but we will see if that will change. In general, these are the things that I wanted to share with you guys. I hope that it gives a little bit more clear information to those of you who are new players or returning players. And I really wish that now you have a bit better picture to not only what are the valuable perks and, of course, in this case, infixes, but also how to go and structure your builds, how to go and be, in a single line of preparing yourself for what is to come. Because before, indeed, we had those bis items, builds, whatever you want to call them, and everyone was just bissing around. But at the end of the day, it was really the case, because some perks were just super powerful compared to the others. Now, I really think that we are far away from this. There is way too many different variations that you can go for. There is so much more potential to build different things. The quickest example I can give you, if we look back to the spreadsheet, like if I'm playing a bow or a musket player, I would definitely go to stack enchanted and let's say vicious as a secondary. But if I play, I don't know, fire staff or ice gauntlet, I would definitely go for skill enchantment. And then if I play, for example, melee and I'm an assassin player, I would go for rogue and penetrating backstab. And like it's just way too different. You can also choose if you want to be offensive, if you want to be defensive, if you want to be somewhere in the middle. It's just way better in my opinion. For those of you who are supporting the channel, this would be also available even before anyone else. And you can see down here that we have rapier tests. This is exactly what I'm referring to by saying that you would be able to see something in advance to everyone else, because as you guys probably know, those who are members of the channel in YouTube have the advantage of seeing some of the videos earlier than others. So if you really want to, and if you really wish to support the channel, feel free to become a member, because this way you would be able to see some things before. And here you would basically maybe note that I have quite some interesting numbers for you, but I would not spoil it even further. And I will just say that there is really nice videos coming with the rapier in mind. So yeah, hopefully you're gonna enjoy them too. Thank you as always guys for watching, and I will see you on the next one.